When a reporter thought they could corner Clint Eastwood with a public attack, they had no idea what was coming. What followed was a calm but powerful response so legendary, it broke the internet. Clint didn't just win the moment, he taught the world a lesson in strength, dignity, and staying true to yourself. Buckle up, because this is the story of how Clint Eastwood turned a potential disaster into one of the most talked about comebacks of all time. The event was meant to promote Clint's latest project, but things took a dramatic turn when a reporter launched a surprise verbal attack. At first, the atmosphere was lighthearted. Fans cheered as Clint walked into the room. He waved and smiled, showing his usual calm confidence. People were excited to hear about his movie, his creative process, and his thoughts on life. Clint was doing what he did best, answering questions with charm and honesty. But then, out of nowhere, a reporter raised their hand and asked a question that shocked the entire room. It wasn't a question about Clint's new film. It wasn't even about his career. The reporter launched straight into a harsh criticism of Clint's past decisions and made accusations about his personal values. They suggested that Clint was old-fashioned, out of touch with today's world, and stuck in the past. The words were sharp, almost disrespectful. You could feel the tension rising in the room. For a moment, everyone froze. The air was heavy with anticipation. People glanced at Clint to see how he would react. The reporter seemed confident, perhaps too confident, that Clint would lose his composure or stumble over his response. After all, many celebrities in similar situations had reacted with anger or frustration. The question felt like a trap. The audience waited in silence. Would Clint lash out? Would he ignore the question entirely? Or would he choose to walk away? Instead of reacting with anger, Clint Eastwood did something remarkable. He stayed calm. There was a long pause. It wasn't the kind of pause that comes from being lost for words. It was a pause filled with thought and control. Clint looked straight at the reporter, his eyes steady and clear. The room, which had been buzzing with tension just moments before, went completely silent. Then Clint smiled, a small, knowing smile. It was the kind of smile that told you he wasn't shaken or thrown off balance. Clint had faced criticism before. He had dealt with countless challenges in his long career, and he wasn't about to be rattled now. Clint began to speak, and from the first word, it was clear that this was going to be a response to remember. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't match the reporter's sharp tone. Instead, his voice was calm and steady, but each word carried weight. He addressed the accusations head-on, without hesitation. "I've always believed," Clint began, "that it's better to live life with conviction than to live trying to please everyone." He went on to explain how he had always stood by his decisions, even when they weren't popular. Clint admitted that he had made mistakes along the way, who hasn't? But he had never lived a life based on fear of criticism. The room was captivated. You could hear every word Clint spoke, as if time itself had slowed down. He didn't just defend himself. He shared wisdom from his years of experience, wisdom that many people could learn from. He emphasized the importance of standing for something, even if it means facing criticism. The reporter, who had seemed so confident at first, now looked uneasy. Clint's calm but powerful words had taken all the energy out of the attack. Clint wasn't just answering a question. He was teaching everyone in the room a lesson. As Clint continued speaking, the atmosphere in the room shifted. At first, people had been tense, waiting to see how Clint would react. Now, they were leaning forward in their seats, hanging on to every word. Clint wasn't just addressing the reporter. He was speaking to something much larger. Clint talked about the criticism he had faced throughout his career. He shared stories of moments when people doubted him, when critics said he couldn't succeed or that his time in the spotlight was over. "I've heard it all before," Clint said with a smile. "But I didn't let those voices decide who I was." The turning point came when Clint delivered a line that would later go viral on social media. Looking directly at the reporter, Clint said, "It's easy to criticize from the sidelines. But living a life worth talking about means taking risks, making mistakes, and standing for what you believe in." The room erupted in applause. People couldn't help but cheer. Clint's words were so powerful, so honest, that they resonated deeply with everyone who heard them. The audience wasn't just clapping for Clint's defense, they were clapping for his courage and conviction. The reporter, who had started the exchange with a smug expression, now seemed completely deflated. Clint hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't attacked back. But somehow, he had won the moment in the most spectacular way. Within hours, clips of Clint's response spread like wildfire across social media. The video of Clint's calm and powerful words was shared millions of times on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. People couldn't stop talking about it. Hashtags like #ClintEastwoodResponse and #LegendaryReply began trending worldwide. Fans and celebrities alike praised Clint for how he handled the situation. "This is how you respond with class," one tweet read. Another said, Clint Eastwood just gave a masterclass in handling criticism. What made the moment so impactful wasn't just Clint's words, it was his demeanor. In a world where arguments often turn ugly, Clint's calmness was a refreshing reminder of how powerful grace under pressure can be. He didn't react emotionally. He responded with wisdom and control. Even people who weren't fans of Clint's work were inspired by his response. Memes and quotes flooded social media, and his speech became a source of inspiration for many. Clint Eastwood's response wasn't just a moment of victory for him, it was a lesson for everyone who witnessed it. In today's world, it's easy for conversations to turn into arguments. Social media is full of people quick to criticize, point fingers, and tear others down without taking a moment to understand their perspective. But Clint's response showed that there's a better way to handle such situations. Clint's calmness didn't come from weakness, it came from strength. By staying composed and thoughtful, he kept control of the conversation. Instead of stooping to the level of the attack, he elevated the discussion. His words were clear, simple, and full of truth. And because he didn't react emotionally, his message was even more powerful. One of the biggest takeaways from Clint's response was the importance of standing for what you believe in. Throughout his life, Clint had faced many critics. He didn't try to please everyone, nor did he change his beliefs to avoid criticism. Instead, he focused on living authentically and standing by his principles. People will always have something to say, Clint told the audience. But that doesn't mean you should let their words decide who you are. These words stuck with everyone in the room and echoed across social media. They reminded people that living a life of meaning often means facing criticism, but it also means not letting that criticism define you. Clint's response also showed the power of listening before reacting. Many people in his position would have fired back at the reporter immediately, defending themselves out of anger or frustration. But Clint chose to pause. That pause was a moment of thought and control. It allowed him to choose his words carefully and deliver a response that was measured, respectful, and deeply impactful. After Clint Eastwood finished speaking, the attention in the room shifted to the reporter. All eyes were on them. At the start of the exchange, the reporter had been confident, even smug. They had clearly expected Clint to stumble over his words or react with frustration. But now, the tables had completely turned. Clint's calm and powerful response had left the reporter speechless. For a few moments, the reporter didn't say anything. They seemed to be searching for the right words, but nothing came out. The confidence they had shown earlier had vanished. The crowd, which had been applauding Clint just moments ago, now looked at the reporter with curiosity and even a little pity. It was clear that the reporter hadn't expected such a composed and wise response. Some people in the audience began to murmur quietly. Many of them were wondering if the reporter would apologize or try to justify their earlier remarks. But the reporter didn't do either. Instead, they sat back down, avoiding eye contact with Clint and the rest of the crowd. The silence spoke louder than any words could have. Clint, for his part, didn't gloat or make any further comment. He had said everything he needed to say, and he wasn't interested in dragging the situation out. Instead, he returned to answering questions from other reporters, treating the rest of the event as if nothing unusual had happened. The impact of Clint Eastwood's response didn't end with that press event. It became a cultural moment that people talked about for weeks, and its message continued to resonate long after the initial buzz died down. So why did this moment matter so much? First, it was a reminder that grace under pressure is one of the most powerful tools anyone can have. In a world where arguments and disagreements are often loud and messy, Clint's calm response was a breath of fresh air. He didn't let his emotions take over. Instead, he stayed true to himself and delivered a message that inspired millions. Second, Clint's response highlighted the importance of authenticity. Throughout his career, Clint had been criticized for his choices, just like many public figures. But he never let that criticism change who he was. He stayed true to his values, even when it wasn't popular. And when the moment came to defend himself, he didn't do it with anger or defensiveness. He did it with honesty and clarity. Finally, this moment mattered because it showed the power of thoughtful communication. In an age of instant reactions and viral outrage, Clint's deliberate and measured response stood out. It reminded people that taking a moment to think before speaking can lead to a more meaningful conversation. Social media continued to buzz with reactions for days after the press event. Fans created videos analyzing Clint's response, and motivational speakers used his words in their talk. Even people who weren't familiar with Clint's work were inspired by his handling of the situation. Clint Eastwood's response will be remembered as one of the most epic comebacks in recent history. It wasn't just a defense, it was a masterclass in how to handle criticism with grace, wisdom, and strength. And for everyone who witnessed it, it was a powerful reminder that staying true to yourself is the ultimate victory. Clint Eastwood has always been a man of action, not just in his films but also in his real life. His career spans decades, and he's seen it all, the highs of critical acclaim and the lows of public scrutiny. This latest moment only added to his already legendary status. It wasn't just about his words that day, it was about what those words represented. Clint showed that even under fire, staying calm and confident could turn an attack into a victory. For many people, Clint's response was a reminder of old-school values that seem rare today. Honesty, integrity, and standing by one's beliefs were central to his message. Clint didn't apologize for who he was, nor did he bend to public pressure. Instead, he showed pride in his journey, the mistakes and the successes. That pride wasn't arrogant. It was the kind of self-assuredness that comes from living a full and authentic life. One of the most striking things about Clint's response was how relatable it was. Everyone faces criticism at some point in their lives. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or even on social media, the world is full of opinions. Clint's message wasn't just for celebrities or public figures, it was for anyone who has ever felt judged or misunderstood. His advice was simple: don't let criticism define you. Instead, use it as an opportunity to reaffirm who you are. Many fans began to reflect on Clint's long career and the lessons it offered. From his early days as a Western hero to his critically acclaimed directing work, Clint had always been someone who took risks. He didn't follow trends or try to fit into a mold. Instead, he carved his own path, even when it meant facing criticism along the way. In the days and weeks following Clint's viral moment, conversations around the press event began to shift. What started as a simple exchange between a reporter and a celebrity became a cultural discussion. People began to talk about the importance of handling criticism with dignity. Many public figures even referenced Clint's response in interviews and social media posts, calling it a masterclass in staying true to yourself. Motivational speakers and life coaches used the clip as an example in their seminars, teaching audiences how to stay calm under pressure. Schools and businesses played the video as a learning tool, emphasizing the value of thoughtful responses over emotional reactions. Clint's response had become more than just a moment, it had become a symbol of resilience. Even the reporter who had launched the initial attack found themselves in the spotlight. Public opinion quickly turned against them, with many people criticizing their approach as disrespectful and unprofessional. Some argued that the reporter's actions were a symptom of a larger issue, our tendency as a society to tear people down rather than build them up. Interestingly, the reporter remained silent after the incident. Whether out of regret or embarrassment, they chose not to issue any further statements. But their silence only amplified Clint's victory. In the eyes of many, Clint had not just won the exchange, he had risen above it entirely. For Clint's fans, this moment was deeply personal. Many of them felt a strong emotional connection to Clint's message. They saw themselves in his story, the struggles, the criticism, and the determination to stay true to one's values. Clint wasn't just a movie star anymore. He was a symbol of strength in the face of adversity. Online fan forums were flooded with messages of support. Some people shared stories of how they had faced criticism in their own lives and how Clint's words had given them strength. Clint's speech gave me the courage to stand up for myself at work, one fan wrote. Another said, I've always admired Clint's movies, but now I admire him as a person even more. Clint's words also resonated with people who had experienced public shaming or social media backlash. In today's world, where everyone has a platform to voice their opinions, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by judgment. Clint's response reminded people that they didn't have to be perfect or universally liked. What mattered was staying true to themselves. One of the most lasting impacts of Clint's response is the lesson it offers future generations. In a world where criticism is constant and often harsh, Clint's story is a powerful reminder of how to navigate life's challenges with grace. Young people, in particular, found inspiration in Clint's example. Parents and teachers began using Clint's response as a teaching tool for kids. They emphasized the importance of staying calm in the face of conflict, listening before speaking, and choosing words wisely. Clint's message wasn't just about defending oneself, it was about living a life of integrity and self-respect. Many young fans wrote letters and social media posts thanking Clint for his word. Thank you for teaching me to stay strong, one teenager wrote. Another said, Clint's speech gave me confidence to be myself, no matter what others say. As time passed, the impact of Clint Eastwood's response only grew. What could have been a forgettable press event had turned into a defining moment in Clint's career. His words were immortalized in countless videos, articles, and social media posts. Fans and critics alike agreed, Clint Eastwood had once again proven why he was a Hollywood legend. But for Clint, it wasn't about fame or praise. It was about staying true to who he was. He had faced the criticism head-on, not with anger or defensiveness, but with honesty and grace. And in doing so, he had inspired millions of people around the world. Clint Eastwood's legacy was already secure long before that fateful press event. But with this moment, he added a new chapter to his story, one that will be remembered for years to come. It was a chapter of strength, wisdom, and the timeless lesson that staying true to yourself is the ultimate act of courage. One of the most unforgettable aspects of Clint Eastwood's epic response was his use of silence. Sometimes, it's not the words we speak, but the moments of silence that hold the greatest power. After delivering his thoughtful and clear statement, Clint didn't try to over-explain or justify himself. He simply let his words sit. That silence allowed everyone in the room, and later, millions of people online, to fully absorb what he had said. Silence, when used correctly, can be more powerful than any argument. Clint's decision not to escalate the situation showed remarkable self-control and maturity. In contrast to the world's tendency to react instantly, often with anger or defensiveness, Clint's measured pause sent a strong message. Confidence doesn't need noise. It doesn't need to shout over others. True strength speaks for itself. Many people admired Clint for knowing when to stop talking. It's a rare quality, especially in the entertainment world where long speeches and elaborate justifications are common. Clint's silence wasn't just strategic, it was intentional. It gave the room a sense of finality and left the reporter with no option but to reflect on their own word. Fans and life coaches alike began discussing the importance of thoughtful silence. In a world full of endless noise, Clint had shown how stillness could be a tool of wisdom. It was yet another way Clint turned what could have been a negative experience into a powerful lesson for everyone watching. The internet exploded with reactions after the press event. Within hours, clips of Clint Eastwood's response began to circulate on social media. Fans praised him for his poise and wisdom, while others dissected every word of his speech, analyzing what made it so impactful. The phrase "Clint's epic response" quickly became a trending topic. Memes, tweets, and YouTube videos flooded timelines. Some users highlighted Clint's calm demeanor, comparing it to how others might have handled the same situation. "This is how you win without raising your voice," one popular post read. Another said, "Clint Eastwood just gave the world a masterclass in dignity." The younger generation, many of whom weren't familiar with Clint's earlier work, discovered a new appreciation for him. Some called him the legend of calm comebacks, while others dubbed him the internet's new wisdom guru. Clint's influence had expanded beyond the world of film, reaching people of all ages and background. Interestingly, the clip also sparked a broader conversation about how public figures handle criticism. Some social media users pointed out that Clint's response was a much-needed example in a time when arguments often devolve into chaos and insult. "We need more Clint Eastwoods in the world," one post declared. "People who listen, stay calm, and respond with thoughtfulness instead of anger." Months after the press event, Clint Eastwood's response continued to inspire people. The clip was shared during motivational talks, leadership workshops, and even conflict resolution seminars. Its universal message resonated in every corner of society. Stay true to yourself, respond with dignity, and don't let criticism define you. Even in everyday conversations, people began referencing Clint's moment. "What would Clint do?" became a playful but meaningful phrase used by fans to remind themselves to stay calm in difficult situations. It was a testament to how deeply Clint's words had resonated with the public. For Clint, life moved on. He continued working on new projects and making public appearances, but the lessons he taught that day remained firmly embedded in the public's consciousness. And though he never sought praise or attention for his response, Clint was proud that his words had helped so many people. Clint's legacy had always been about more than just movies. It was about resilience, strength, and the ability to overcome life's challenges with grace. His epic response at that press event was just another chapter in his extraordinary life story, a chapter that will be remembered for generations to come. As the dust settled, one thing became clear. Clint Eastwood's response wasn't just a temporary internet sensation. It had become a timeless example of courage under fire. In an era where public figures are often judged by how quickly they can clap back or fire off a witty retort, Clint had taken a different path. He didn't respond with sarcasm or defensiveness. He responded with truth and composure. For generations to come, Clint's story will continue to inspire people facing challenges in their own lives. His words will remind them to stand tall, stay calm, and never let the opinions of others define their worth. And for those who witnessed the moment, it will forever be remembered as a shining example of dignity in the face of adversity. Clint Eastwood's life has always been about blazing his own trail. With his epic response, he once again proved why he's not just a legend of the screen, he's a legend of life. His story will live on, not just as a moment in time, but as a timeless lesson for all. As Clint Eastwood's legendary career continued, this iconic moment remained a key part of his legacy. It wasn't just his movies or his directing talent that people remembered, it was the way he had handled life's challenges with grace and strength. Clint became a symbol of resilience for people from all walks of life. New generations discovered Clint's response through social media, YouTube clips, and articles. They admired how he stayed calm, even when facing unfair attack. And they learned from his example. Criticism is inevitable, but how you choose to respond defines your character. Clint's story also inspired a wave of positive conversations about how society handles disagreement. It reminded people that shouting louder doesn't make you stronger, listening, thinking, and speaking with honesty do. His words became a rallying cry for those who believed in empathy and thoughtful communication in a world full of noise. In the end, Clint Eastwood's life was more than just a collection of films and awards. It was a story of resilience, courage, and unwavering authenticity. His response at that press event became a defining chapter in his life, a chapter that showed the world the true meaning of strength. For those who followed Clint's journey, his message remained clear: stay true to yourself, don't let others' opinions determine your path, and when faced with criticism, choose to respond with dignity and grace. Clint's epic comeback wasn't just a victory for him, it was a victory for everyone who believes in living with integrity. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, staying calm and authentic is the ultimate act of courage. As the world continued to change, Clint Eastwood's timeless message endured. And for all those who found inspiration in his story, one thing was certain: Clint Eastwood would forever be remembered not just as a Hollywood legend, but as a symbol of wisdom, strength, and authenticity. And that, more than anything, is why his response broke the internet, and why it will continue to inspire generations to come.